Exodus chapter 16 is picking up where they were out of Egypt for 1 month. I don't know if you remember the last lesson. I know we missed a couple of Thursdays. But in the last time we had a lesson, we talked about how the Jewish calendar started the day they left Egypt, or the day they crossed the Red Sea. So that was the beginning of the new year for Jews. And it's kind of ironic that God would do that they would get a new calendar, a new beginning when they got delivered. And that's how it is for us. When we get saved, it's a new beginning. You know, we're reborn. We get a clean slate, a new start. And we need to remember that too, because a lot of times when we get saved, it's really easy for us to get caught up in our past and the past mistakes we made and what we didn't do right and how we made wrong decisions. But when you accept Christ, it's a new beginning. You know, now does that mean we may not have to pay for some of our past mistakes? We still may have to. But as far as God's concerned, it's a clean start. And so here's the children of Israel. They're 30 days outside of Egypt. And this is what happens. In Exodus chapter 16, verse 1, it says, "And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregations of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt." So we see that the children of Israel have been on this trip for exactly 1 month. The second month was called Ziph. Now, for us, that would be May. This is like springtime right there. And they moved as a company. They moved, as a caravan. And where they were at was called the wilderness of Sin. That's what God refers to the wilderness of sin. And it's kind of funny because I use this example, and I don't know if any of you guys can identify with this, but even though they were delivered, they still were trapped in sin. And you say, how can you be delivered and still be trapped in sin? I'll put it to you like this. When we accept Christ, the Bible says that we've been justified, meaning that even though we were in sin, He justified us, meaning even though we were guilty as I don't know what, in His eyes we're free from sin because of the blood, because of what He did for us on the cross. We're saved. But a lot of times, and how many of you can identify with this, even after you got saved, there's some stuff you held on to a little bit too long, or stuff you didn't, let go of, or things that you needed a little extra help from God. Like I always make people laugh when I tell them when I first got saved, I used to smoke cigarettes. And it was about a good 6 months after I got saved, I was still smoking cigarettes. And all my saved friends told me, "You ain't saved, you still smoking cigarettes." Well, I knew I was saved. I was. I didn't care what they said. I was saved, but I was still in bondage to them cigarettes. And it wasn't until I got to a place where I realized that unless I got help from Him, I wasn't going to get free from them cigarettes. And that's how it is with anything we're in bondage to. Until you acknowledge and say, "Okay, God, I can't do this by myself," it ain't gonna, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to do it with our willpower. We're trying to do it, with our strength of mind. That ain't working. If that was the case, you wouldn't need Jesus to get saved in the first place. So here we are, the children of Israel. They're 30 days out of Egypt. Now, think about this before we get to verse 3. Think about all the things that the children of Israel saw before they left Egypt. They saw God rain down hail. They saw a plague of fleas, flies, frogs. The water turned to blood. The firstborn killed. They saw only a pillar of fire and a pillar of clouds. But look at verse 3. "And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full, for you have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Now, you would think that after they saw God do all that He did, they would not have to worry a bit about how God was going to provide for them. But they did. Now, I don't think none of them were dying in starvation. They maybe had a couple of days of just grumbling, food, stomach grumbled a little bit. But they started complaining. And I'm like, okay, what does God have to do to prove to them that He's God? Should have been nothing else after all that they saw. They saw the whole Egyptian army get wiped out. But now they're starting to question whether God cares or not. Now, you don't have to answer this question, but have there been times in your life where you started to question God like this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. We do, because we're human. We're human. I mean, if you go back to the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve basically sinned because they had doubts that God was really giving them all that they needed. What did the devil say to Eve? This fruit will make you like God. It was pleasant to the eyes. It was good for food. But the main thing that got Eve in trouble was when the serpent said, you'll be like God. Well, isn't that what got Lucifer kicked out of heaven? I will be like the Most High. And what does that stem from? It stems from being ungrateful. And that's where the children of Israel are at. They got delivered. They got set free. Now think about this. You're a slave getting your back whipped all day long, and you reminiscing about how good the food was in Egypt. Think about that. How much sense does that make? Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And it says, and the children of Israel said unto them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. So they're basically telling God, I'd rather be dead than be out here in the wilderness. Think about that. And really think about it. Nobody put a gun to the children of Israel's head and made them follow Moses. Oh, nobody put a gun to their head. Nobody said you got to go. But think about it. Who would want to be a slave? You know, while they were slaves, they were abused. The women were treated like trash. The men were beaten, but they would rather be in Egypt. Now, think about this, because I know I've said this to people, and I've looked at people that backslid, and I know my own life when I slid back. Let me ask you this question: what do you think is the number one reason why people backslide? And there's no right or wrong answer, but I want you to think about this. What do you think some of the reasons, or what are some of the reasons why people backslide? Huh?
Stay in the Word and give our time to God like we need to.
Okay, that can cause you.
If you're not there, the weaker you get. It's just like food. If you don't have food for a while, you're still looking pretty good, and you're not doing too bad. But then after a while,
you get weak.
Your stomach starts to grow out, and different things start to affect you.
Okay, what else? What are some reasons why people backslide?
You don't have the company.
You don't have the what?
You don't have the company like you did when you was out there at work.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes when you first get saved, it's kind of lonely. Yeah, I know when I got saved, all my friends got high. I couldn't hang with them no more because they were still trying to get him. I smell he's some weed. I don't do that no more. So it gets lonely. What else? You had something to shine? Huh? Okay. All right. How many of y'all would agree that sin is fun sometimes? Yeah. See, we don't like to admit that, but sometimes I hear preachers say, oh, I thank God I got delivered from a life of miserable sin. Sin ain't miserable. The results of sin is miserable. Sin itself is fun. That's why people sin. Yeah. It's funny. I was just laughing about this the other day. I was talking to somebody. It was another brother. And we were talking about how for men, we got to keep our eyes pure, like looking at the pornography and stuff, lusting and stuff. And as we were talking, I'm standing there and I'm looking, and this girl walks by with these yoga pants on. I'm like, see, the devil is a liar. It's like, you can't even go outside without having, but that's how the enemy knows. The enemy knows that all it takes is you to look back and reminisce on, wow, Now, I remember I used to drink, right? I'll never forget one time I was in the Air Force. It was my last deployment in the military. And I went to Hawaii. It was like my commander gave me a gift. Here you go, you go to Hawaii for a week. So I get in the room, open the refrigerator. It's full of beer, liquor, all kinds of alcoholic beverages. Now, mind you, I hadn't had a drink in over 20 years. But that was tempting. There was nobody there with me. My wife wasn't with me. I was by myself. And I remember what Johnny Walker Red tasted like with some 7-Up. I remember what, rum and Coke tasted like. And there was a whole door full of Coke and Bacardi in there. I just stood there and I closed the door, got on the phone, called the front desk. Hey, can somebody come up and get this liquor out of this refrigerator? Now, that was a good move on my part. But the lady at the front desk wanted to argue with me. She's like, well, for what? I said, I'm not trying to argue with you, man, but can you come up and take this liquor out of the refrigerator? She hung up on me. So I went downstairs, who's your boss? And he was standing there, and he said, what's the matter, Sergeant? I said, I asked this woman to take the liquor out of my refrigerator, and she hung up on me. So he looked at her like this, and then he said, don't worry, I'll be right up there. So I was on my way to work, and came back and was gone. When I got back, he said to me, I understand, I'm a reformed alcoholic. Exactly. Yeah, and that's how the enemy works. Yeah, nobody would know, but guess what? What if I drank too much and went out and got in my rental car and drove it? Or what if I got drunk and got into a fight with somebody because I'd been drinking? See, that's the thing about sin. The repercussions and the ramifications, the things that cause, that get us to sin, there's all repercussions afterwards. Like the young man and the young lady that just thought they was going to have a good time and go to the movies and make out in the backseat of the car. Well, 9 months later, so there's always repercussions. So, verse 4. Then the Lord said unto Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. Now, mind you, this is before God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. But this is like a test. And this is what it really was. I really believe God let this happen this way because he wanted to find if they could be obedient or not. He says, the man is going to come down, you take what you need, and then the next day I'll give you some more. They didn't obey him. They were trying to hoard the manna. They were trying to stash something. When they woke up, it was rotten. All right? Now, let me ask you guys a question. Do you think God still gives us tests? Of course he does. Yeah, he gives us tests. He does things to see if we're going to really obey him or not. That's why a lot of times I hear Christians say, well, I got a call in my life and I want to do this and that for the Lord. The Lord ain't just going to slap you upside the head and give you commission you immediately. He's going to give you some tests. Yeah. And he does it with all of us. And if you look in the Bible, he gave Peter tests and he gave Paul tests and John and different ones. And a lot of times they fail, especially Peter. Peter will always fail in tests. But God didn't fire Peter, but Peter had to learn. Same thing with us. We have to learn. All right? But the children of Israel, they failed this test. Okay. Verse 5, it says, and it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. All right? Hello? Hey, what's up, man? All right, so all they had to do was pass this test to obey God and do it this way in order for them to get a double portion. And a lot of times we miss out on blessings because we didn't obey the first order of business, the first order God gave us. I see it so much today, especially with our young people. I was just talking to a young lady today, and a nice young lady, and she was saying, I want a baby so bad, right? And I said, you married? No, but I want a baby. I said, well, there's a progression. You get married first, then you have a baby. Well, I don't need a husband to have no baby. That's true. You can't make a baby without a husband. But the chances of you having a successful life raising that child is a lot harder when you ain't got somebody to support you and to help raise that child. But she just couldn't, well, my girlfriend, and see, that's the thing. Our society is just clouded from spiritual reasoning and from spiritual maturity. And so the children of Israel, all God says, obey me and I'll double your portion. How many of us know that because there's certain things we've done in our lives where we disobey God, we'd be further ahead if we had obeyed him? It's the truth. I know from my own personal life, there's a lot of things that if I had obeyed God 20 years about something, I'd be in a better position right now. But we do. We learn the hard way. My mom used to always say, a hard head makes a soft. All right. Verse 6. And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel at even, that ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from Egypt. And okay, so God, miraculously gives them this bread, and he tells them what to do and how to do it. Verse 7, and in the morning, then you shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that ye murmur against us? Now the thing about it is, they really weren't complaining to Moses and Aaron. They were complaining to God. And a lot of times, that's how it is. A lot of times, the people that represent God, a lot of times catch the brunt. But really, the people are mad at God. And we don't like to admit it, but there are times we get mad at God. All right? I remember when I first became a chaplain in Cooper, I'll never forget the first month, I had a couple of situations where I had to go to the NICU where the babies are born. And that's the one place in the hospital I don't like to go to. Because I can look at a whole lot of stuff. When I see a baby hurting or whatever, So I get up there, and this lady's 5-month-old baby died. And when I walked in, I had on my clergy shirt. She punched me in the chest. She said, why did God kill my baby? And she couldn't punch God, so she punched me. I'm his representative. And so that's what happened here with Moses and Aaron. They were complaining to Moses and Aaron, but really their complaint was against God. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Is it ever okay to complain to God?
Yes, come boldly to him.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You're not supposed to question him.
No, that's not true. Yeah, you're right.
He told us
Yeah.
that we can come to him.
He wants us to come to him. It's better for you to go to God with an attitude than to walk away from God with one. Because if you go to God with that attitude, and you go to God and complain, and you go to God and say, God, I don't understand this, he'll explain it to you. He will. That happened to Job. Job didn't curse God like his wife told him to. His wife said, curse God and die. Job wouldn't do that. But Job did complain. And Job was like, okay, God, look, I take care of my kids. I'm a good father. I obey you. I pray. I do all of this. And how come I'm still going through this mess? Yeah, Job said that to God many times. But then came a point in Job 33 where God basically said to Job in a dream, he said, he's revealing things to Job in dreams. And then as the time goes on, Job says, okay, God, you got to tell me something. And Job, got it off his chest. And then God finally said to Job, Job, were you there when I created the world? Were you there when I created the oceans? And what God was trying to say to Job was, I'm omniscient. I know everything. I'm omnipresent. I'm everywhere. I'm omnipotent. I'm all powerful. Now, why did God give Job that response? This is the reason why. Because it goes back to the scripture in Romans 8:28. All things work together for good to them that love God. Now, do we always understand that verse when it happens? No. I'll never forget when the doctor told me I was going to go blind. I drove all the way from Wills Eye Hospital back to Browns Mills crying. Yeah. I didn't want to go blind. And the doctors were pretty sure I was going to go blind. Well, he was half right because I got one good eye. But yeah, I was upset with God. But I'll never forget that night when I got home. I was so upset I didn't even want to talk to my wife because I didn't even tell her what the doctor said. I got home and I turned the Bible to Psalm 13. And for some reason God told me to turn it. When I looked at Psalm 13, the first verse says, David says to God, how long will you hide your face from me? Forever? David was upset with God. His own son, Absalom, was trying to kill him. David was lost his kingdom. He hiding in the woods from his own son. David was upset. But if you read the whole psalm, the very last verse says, "But I will trust in your salvation." And that's what we have to understand. When we're going through these situations and we don't understand why, just, if nothing else, say, "Lord, I trust in your delivering power. I trust in your salvation." And that's what the children of Israel should have done. But they didn't. They murmured and they complained. You know, after seeing God wipe out a whole army, I think I would trust God after that. You know, after seeing God send down locusts and all kinds of stuff on Egypt, I think I would trust God after that. But guess what? They're human. Guess what? We're human. Let's make this a little bit more personal. And you don't have to share, but if you want to share something, you can. I want you to think about the roughest situation you've been through in your life. You could be going through it right now. And tell me that you haven't said something similar to God that David said, like, "God, where you at?" "Yeah." "Where you at, God?" "Yeah." But remember, you can say that to God. He's your father. You can talk to your father. Elijah got discouraged and wanted to just die after Jezebel put a contract out on him. God didn't fire Elijah. He told Elijah, "Go and rest, lay down." He sent some ravens to bring him some food so he could get something to eat. And then, after all of this stuff that he'd been through, it said God spoke to him in a still small voice. All of us are going through things. We're all, maybe not as bad now, but don't be afraid to talk to God. I don't care how bad it is. I don't care how mad you are to God. Talk to God. Because if you don't talk to God, guess who's going to start talking to you? Yeah. And you know the thing about the devil? The devil always tells you what you want to hear. God will tell you what you need to hear. Yeah, the devil will tell you to make some stupid decision that's based upon your emotions and your flesh. God's going to tell you to do something that's based upon what's best for you spiritually. And ultimately, when you do what's best for you spiritually, it'll translate itself into natural. "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things shall be added unto you." Always put God first, even when you don't understand God. Yeah, there's some things going on in my life I don't understand. I don't know why. I don't know why I got the health issues I'm going through. I don't know why, my leg is so swollen. One leg is almost 3 times the size of the other one. I don't understand that. But you know what? I'm going to trust in his salvation. Yeah, I'm going to trust him. Even in the midst of all this, I'm going to trust him. Because I've seen God do too much. Just like the children of Israel, all of us have seen God do too much. Yeah. I should be dead right now. As many times I drove drunk when I was out there in the world, as many times I got high driving a car. I never forget one night me and a bunch of guys smoked up a whole bag of hashish and drove from Dover to Wilmington and back. I should be dead. But look at God. Yeah, children of Israel, they were complaining. And Moses said to Aaron, verse 9, "Say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmuring." All right? Verse 10, "And it came to pass, as Aaron spoke unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud." Now, something we need to understand, and back then, they didn't have a Bible to read. They didn't even have the law yet. But what they did have was God would make miraculous appearances so that they would know he was God. Like on the mountain where Moses went to get the 10 Commandments. They call it the mountain of God. So evidently there was something up there glowing, like the burning bush, something up there that got the people's attention to let them know God is real. All right? So this is what God did. God appeared in this cloud, just like the cloud that they followed when they were coming out of Egypt. And I think sometimes the reason why God did this was because it was a reminder. Okay, remember what happened in Egypt? I'm still here. Yeah. When you get that they got that bad diagnosis from the doctor 10 years ago that said you got cancer, and then last week they tell you the same thing. Didn't God get you out of that one? Yeah. And that's what the enemy always says, "Oh, look, God didn't really deliver you. God really didn't do it for you." Stand still and see the salvation of God. Don't give up on God, because God doesn't give up on us. Yeah, God sees all that we're going through. God knows when I'm laying in the bed and I'm ready to quit. God knows when you're so depressed you don't want to live anymore. God knows that. But when you feel like that, talk to him. When you feel like that, don't hide. Don't put the pillow over your head and say, I'm going to die. No, just talk to God. Say, God, I feel like dying. God, I feel like quitting. Tell him that. He knows it already. But what happened? Let me ask you a question. Why do you think it's so important for us to express our feelings to God? Why do you think it's important? Even though he already knows what we're going through, why do you think it's so important for us to express our pain, our hurt, our anguish to God? That's a good reason. Clean us up. Because the only way you're going to get delivered from those negative feelings is you got to release it. Didn't Jesus say, cast your care on me, for I care for you? Take my yoke, it's easy. God wants us to give that stuff to him. You feel like quitting, tell him, God, I feel like quitting. You know, I can't take another night like this. I can't take another day like this. Tell him. And don't be afraid to tell him. See, one of the tricks of the enemy is the devil wants you to feel like, yeah, how many of you heard people say this? I don't want to bother God. No, God wants you to bother him. God wants you to talk to him. Well, I bother God a lot. Yeah, I bother God a lot. Yeah, but it's not a bother. It's not a bother. He's your father. All right? All right, here we go. Verse 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, verse 12, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, at even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread. Ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. All right? Now, it seems to me like if they didn't realize by now this was God, you know, they're just slow. But then that's how humans are. To show you how good God is, any of y'all ever eat quail? No? Quail is some of the best bird you could ever eat. I mean, quail is better than chicken. I mean, it's delicious. You know, God could have sent them earthworms. He could have sent them, rats, possums. He sent quail. Some good eating. Manna, bread from heaven. And they still complain. As you continue to read through Exodus, the children of Israel constantly complain. And even when Moses left for a while and went up to get the tablets, they complained. They basically told Aaron, what if Moses don't come back? Create us another god, a golden calf so we can worship it. Yeah. So human beings, we're pretty stupid. We all are. But the children of Israel is an example of how we shouldn't act. How we shouldn't act. Amen. All right. Verse 13, it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew laid round about the host. And when the dew was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. All right. So, here we have God giving these folks bread. He's giving them quail. They're still complaining. They're still complaining. Now, let me see. I want to jump over. Turn me to James chapter 5. James chapter 5. I'm going to deal with this for a little bit. Before I go there, I just want to talk a little bit about patience. Because that was the thing that the children of Israel lacked. They lacked patience. James chapter 5, starting verse 7. They lacked patience. And the thing about it is, there are times when we do get impatient. There are times when it seems like God can't move fast enough. But you can pay a serious penalty when you're impatient. All right? Think about your lives and our lives. What are some things that you've done that if you had been patient, it might have turned out a little different? Yeah. Lack of patience can be a devastating thing. All right, let's look at verse 7. James chapter 5 says, be patient. I'm reading from a different translation. What am I reading today? But I'm going to read James. It says, be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruits of the earth, being patient about it, until he receives the early and the late rains. Okay, I'll stop right there for a second. Anything you get from God, anything you receive from the Lord, it may be a free gift, but there's still things that you have to wait for. It's like, for example, the young lady that said she wanted a child. Instead of saying, Lord, send me a husband so we can have a child, she jumped from point A to point C, I want a baby. Now, what's going to happen when she gets that baby? Well, one, she's going to have to quit work. She ain't going to have a lot of money. She may end up having to go on welfare. She may have to drop out of college. But she's just thinking about, I want to have this baby. Yeah. And so we have to learn how to put things in the priority that God sets forth. Her prayer should be, Lord, send me a God-fearing man that's got a good job. I said that to her. You may want a baby, but there's a process. And because as human beings, we jump the process, we get in trouble. Yeah, all of us have done it. I know I have. I've done things that because I jumped ahead. And that's what happened with the children of Israel. They were impatient. Verse 8, you also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. And so a lot of times, even those of us that are in ministry, when you get impatient, the enemy can take you so far off course that, you were like wondering, how did I get here? And so that's what God is trying to warn against. Be patient. Don't grumble against one another. See, I'm going to tell you something. Grumbling and complaining is like a disease. It spreads. You get one person in the church that's complaining all the time, if you don't put that person in check, before you know it, half the church is complaining. Yeah. And I've seen it happen. I saw a congregation break up when I was overseas because people were just complaining. Yeah. I never forget, it was a gospel service at the base, and the guy that was in charge of gospel service, he was not a very, he was a good pastor, but he wasn't an exciting, preacher. He was just, But then came this guy that could whoop and he could scream and he could get folks riled up. And they basically church split, because they wanted to follow this after this exciting guy. Well, it turns out the exciting guy was cheating on his wife, drinking liquor and doing all kinds of stuff, But the church split because people complained against the guy that was really a good man. See, complaining is like, when you start whispering, that's why when somebody comes to you gossiping, put your hand up just like this. Like, you got a problem with the pastor, let's pray for him. You got a problem with deaconess,